We define ourselves by the way we experience the other. But when you see that the other is you, the whole thing changes. You're not being put down. You're not being supported. You're simply it. Now, isn't that curious? Have you ever found yourself in a crowded room surrounded by people yet feeling utterly alone? As if you were a solitary actor on some vast stage with everyone else sitting in judgment, watching your every gesture, your every stumble. We walk through life believing we are these separate little islands of consciousness, fragile egos wrapped in bags of skin, peering out at a world that seems foreign, threatening, perpetually other. And this other, this great external world of people and circumstances, appears to have the power to disturb our peace, to ruffle our feathers, to make us deeply, profoundly bothered. But what if I told you that this entire setup, this drama of the separate self being victimized by the cruel world, is nothing more than a cosmic joke, a magnificent illusion that we've taken so seriously we've forgotten how to laugh at it? You see, being bothered is not really about what happens to you. It's about something far more subtle, far more interesting. It's about the story you tell yourself about what's happening to you. Let me begin with a little story. Imagine a wave on the ocean suddenly developing consciousness and declaring, "I am separate from this water. I am an individual wave. And all these other waves, they're foreign to me. They're threats to my existence." How absurd would that be? The wave is the ocean expressing itself in wave form. But in our human drama, we've convinced ourselves of exactly this kind of absurdity. We feel ourselves to be solitary prisoners locked inside these bodies, looking out through the windows of our eyes at a world that seems alien, unpredictable, and often hostile.
When someone criticizes us, when they don't behave according to our expectations, when they seem to threaten our carefully constructed sense of who we are, we feel attacked. But here's the first secret. You cannot be attacked by something that you fundamentally are. Think about it this way. When you look in a mirror and see your reflection making faces at you, do you get angry at the mirror? Do you try to change the expression by pushing on the glass? Of course not. You recognize that what you're seeing is your own reflection. But in daily life, we've forgotten this simple truth. The people who irritate us, who seem to push our buttons, who appear to be obstacles to our happiness, they are mirrors reflecting back to us something we haven't yet recognized about ourselves. Now, let me tell you about splinters. You know what a splinter feels like? That sharp little piece of wood embedded in your flesh. But here's what's fascinating. The pain doesn't come from the wood itself. The pain comes from your body's resistance to it. Your flesh contracts around the foreign object, inflaming, rejecting, fighting. It's your own tissue creating the suffering by saying, "This doesn't belong here. Get it out." In exactly the same way, when someone says something that bothers you, perhaps they criticize your work or they ignore you at a party or they express political views that seem offensive to you, the pain you feel is not in their words. The pain is in your psychic flesh rejecting those words, contracting around them, saying, "This evaluation of me is not acceptable. I refuse it." But what are you really refusing? You're refusing reality. You're refusing what is actually happening in favor of what you think should be happening. And that, my friends, is the source of all psychological suffering. Consider this. Every moment that you are bothered by someone, you are essentially saying, "Reality is wrong, and I know better how it should be." You're arguing with what is.
And how often do you win arguments with reality? How often does the universe say, "Oh, you're absolutely right. Let me rearrange everything to match your preferences"? You see, we carry around these ideas about ourselves, these self-images, these identities. I am a kind person. I am intelligent. I am successful. I am spiritual. And when someone comes along and behaves in a way that challenges these self-concepts, when they treat us as if we might be unkind, stupid, unsuccessful, or unspiritual, it creates what we might call an identity crisis. The ego, this collection of ideas about who we think we are, suddenly feels under attack. It must defend itself. It must prove its worth. It must make the other person wrong so that it can remain right about itself. But here's the beautiful joke. This ego, this sense of fixed identity, is itself an illusion. You are not a thing. You are not a solid, unchanging entity that can be threatened. You are more like a dance than a dancer. More like a song than a singer. You are a process, a flowing, ever-changing pattern of relationships. Think about it. Are you the same person you were 10 years ago, 5 years ago, yesterday? Your body has completely replaced most of its cells. Your thoughts have changed. Your beliefs have evolved. Your relationships have shifted. So where is this fixed you that you're so desperately trying to protect? The truth is there's nothing there to defend. And when you really see this, when you really get it in your bones, something extraordinary happens. The need to be defensive simply evaporates. How can you defend something that was never there in the first place? Here's something that will tickle your brain. You cannot be intelligent all by yourself. Intelligence is not a thing you possess like a wallet or a watch. Intelligence is a relationship between you and a problem, between your awareness and a situation that calls for understanding. Similarly, you cannot be loving in isolation. Love is not something you have. It's something you do, something that happens between you and another. You cannot be generous without someone to be generous to. You cannot be patient without something that tests your patience. Do you see what I'm getting at? You don't exist as a separate entity with fixed qualities. You exist as a pattern of relationships. And the people who seem to bother you, they're not separate from you. They're part of the very fabric of your existence. They're helping to define who you are in this moment. The mystics have always known this. They speak of the fundamental interconnectedness of all things. The web of relationship that connects every apparent thing to every other apparent thing. The ego says, I am here and they are there and never the twain shall meet. But consciousness, when it's not trapped in the ego's dream, sees clearly. There is no here without there, no self without other, no inside without outside. As the old saying goes, the ego is a social institution with no physical reality. It exists only in relationship, only in the stories we tell about the differences between me and not me. But these stories, however convincing, are just stories. Now we come to something really juicy. Have you ever noticed that the things that irritate you most in other people are often precisely the things you struggle with in yourself? The colleague whose arrogance drives you up the wall, might you be fighting your own hidden pride? The friend whose laziness infuriates you, could you be terrified of your own capacity for inertia? This is not psychology. This is cosmic law. The world is a mirror. And what you see reflected back to you is your own consciousness. The people who show up in your life, especially those who push your buttons, are like cosmic messengers bringing you news about parts of yourself you haven't yet acknowledged or integrated. I once knew a man who was constantly bothered by what he called stupid people. He would go on and on about the idiots he had to deal with every day. The cashier who couldn't make change, the driver who couldn't park properly, the neighbor who couldn't keep his dog quiet. And you know what I discovered about this man? He was terrified of appearing stupid himself. The beautiful thing is, once he saw this pattern, once he recognized that his irritation with stupid people was really his own fear of being stupid, everything changed. He could suddenly laugh at human foolishness, including his own, instead of being tormented by it. The mirror had done its job. This is why spiritual traditions speak of loving your enemies. Not because it's a nice moral thing to do, but because your enemies are your greatest teachers. They show you exactly where you're still attached, where you're still defending an illusion, where you're still taking yourself too seriously. Let me share with you one of my favorite Taoist stories. A man is sailing down a river when suddenly another boat crashes into his. He's furious. He starts shouting at the other boatman, "You idiot, can't you steer? You've damaged my boat." But then he realizes the other boat is empty. It's just drifting with the current. Immediately, his anger vanishes. He might still be concerned about the damage to his boat. But there's no emotional charge, no sense of personal offense. It was just an event, a collision of objects in space. Now, here's the question. Was the collision any different when he thought there was someone in the boat? The physical event was identical. The only difference was the story he told himself about intentionality, about someone doing something to him. What if I told you that all boats are empty? What if every person who has ever bothered you was just an empty boat drifting according to the currents of their own conditioning, their own unconscious patterns, their own karmic momentum? What if there was never anyone actually trying to hurt you, insult you, or diminish you? What if it was all just the impersonal dance of cause and effect, as natural and blameless as weather? This doesn't mean we become doormats or that we don't respond appropriately to situations. If an empty boat crashes into you, you still need to deal with the practical consequences. But you don't need to suffer emotionally. You don't need to create a story about victims and villains. You can respond from clarity rather than reactivity. When you really see this, when you really understand that the other who bothers you is not separate from you, everything becomes a dance. The critic and the criticized, the annoyer and the annoyed, the pusher and the pushed. They're all movements in one cosmic symphony. It's like watching a movie and getting angry at the villain. You might enjoy the drama. You might feel the emotional charge, but you don't mistake the actor for the role. You don't storm onto the stage to fight the villain. You understand it's all part of the performance. But in the movie of daily life, we've forgotten we're watching a performance. We think it's all deadly serious. We think our role is our identity. We think the other actors are really trying to harm us. What a delightful cosmic joke. And the moment you see it, the moment you really get it, you can't help but laugh. Not at the expense of others, but with the pure joy of recognition. Oh, it's all one dance. I've been fighting with my own reflection. Now, let's get really intimate. When someone insults you, when they criticize you, when they ignore you or treat you dismissively, who exactly is it that feels hurt? Is it your arm, your liver, your big toe? No. What feels hurt is a thought, a collection of thoughts, actually. Thoughts about who you think you are. Thoughts about how you think you should be treated. Thoughts about what this means about your worth or your future or your reputation. But here's the thing about thoughts. They come and go like clouds in the sky. Some are dark and stormy. Some are light and wispy. But none of them stick around permanently. They arise. They dance across the screen of consciousness for a while. And then they dissolve back into the vast space from which they came. You are not the clouds. You are the sky. The sky is never damaged by the weather that moves through it. A thunderstorm doesn't wound the sky. A gentle breeze doesn't heal it. The sky simply provides the space within which all weather phenomena can arise and pass away. It remains vast, open, unchanged. In the same way, your true nature, your deepest self, is like that sky. Thoughts of hurt arise within it. Feelings of anger move through it, but they cannot damage it. They cannot diminish it. They cannot touch its essential peace. The practice then is to identify with the sky rather than the weather, to recognize yourself as the awareness within which all experiences unfold rather than identifying with the experiences themselves. You know, life is remarkably like a grand theatrical performance. We're all wearing masks playing roles. The role of the parent, the child, the professional, the lover, the critic, the victim, the hero. And here's the thing, to be a good actor, you must commit fully to your role. You must feel the emotions, speak the lines with conviction, engage with the other players as if the drama were absolutely real. But a poor actor is one who forgets his acting. He becomes so identified with his character that even when the curtain falls, he can't take off the costume. He goes home still believing he is the king or the beggar or the villain. Most of us are poor actors in this sense. We've become so identified with our roles that we've forgotten our true nature as the awareness that can play any role, wear any mask without being limited by any of them. See if you can play your parts, the part of the one who's offended, the one who's pleased, the one who's successful, the one who's struggling, with full sincerity and commitment, but with the recognition that they're parts. The real you is the awareness behind all the characters, the consciousness that can observe all the roles without being trapped in any of them. When someone criticizes you, you can play the role of the criticized one. You can feel the emotions that come with that role, but you don't have to believe that's who you really are. You can remain aware that it's just another character in the cosmic play. Now, don't misunderstand me. To never be bothered is not to become a cold, unfeeling stone. It's not to become indifferent or checked out from life. Quite the opposite, it's to become like water. Water doesn't resist the obstacles in its path. It doesn't argue with the rocks in the riverbed or complain about the shape of the banks. It simply flows around, over, and through whatever it encounters. And in doing so, it maintains its essential nature while gradually, gently reshaping everything it touches. When someone throws a stone into a calm lake, the water doesn't get angry. It doesn't hold a grudge against the stone. It simply ripples, integrating the disturbance into its own movement, and then returns to stillness. But notice, the stone is now part of the lake. It has been embraced, surrounded, included. This is the way of not being bothered. You allow the disturbances to arise. You feel them fully. You let them move through you. And then you return to your natural state of peace. You don't suppress the feelings or pretend they're not there. You give them space. You let them have their dance, but you don't build a house for them to live in. As I've often said, the only way to make sense out of change is to plunge into it, move with it, and join the dance. The dance of being human includes the full spectrum of experience, joy and sorrow, praise and blame, gain and loss. The secret is not to avoid the dance, but to remember that you are both the dancer and the dance itself. Now let's talk about how to actually live this way. How do you move from understanding these ideas intellectually to embodying them in your daily experience? The practice is not one of suppression. I cannot emphasize this enough. This is not about stuffing down your emotions or pretending you don't feel bothered when you do. That would be just another form of resistance. Resistance to your own resistance. Instead, it's a practice of allowing. When the feeling of annoyance arises, when someone pushes your buttons, when you feel that familiar tightness in your chest or that heated sensation behind your eyes, don't try to push it away. Instead, become curious about it. Say to yourself, here is the feeling of being bothered. How interesting. Let me feel it completely. Let me explore its texture, its temperature, its location in my body. Where exactly does it live? What does it want from me? What is it trying to tell me? By giving the feeling space, by meeting it with curiosity rather than resistance, you rob it of its power to control you. It's like being in a storm versus watching a storm from a secure shelter. In the first case, you're at the mercy of the weather. In the second, you can observe its power and beauty without being overwhelmed by it. This shift from being in your emotions to being aware of your emotions is perhaps the most practical skill you can develop. It doesn't eliminate difficult feelings, they are part of the human experience, but it transforms your relationship to them. They become information rather than commands, weather rather than fate. There's a beautiful concept in Buddhist philosophy called tathata, often translated as suchness or thusness. It refers to the simple unadorned reality of things as they are without our mental commentary, without our judgments and preferences and stories. Can you see the person who bothers you not as a personal antagonist but as a phenomenon of nature? Can you observe them the way you might watch a thunderstorm or a sunset, with interest perhaps, but without taking it personally? That critical colleague of yours. Can you see that they criticize because that's their nature? Like a cat meows, a dog barks, and a bird sings. A critical person criticizes. It's not directed at you personally any more than the rain falls on you personally. It's simply what they do according to their conditioning, their fears, their unconscious patterns. This doesn't mean you become a doormat or that you don't respond appropriately to situations. You might still need to set boundaries, have difficult conversations, or remove yourself from toxic environments. But you can do all of this from a place of clarity rather than reactivity. From wisdom rather than woundedness. When you see the suchness of others, their natural way of being shaped by countless causes and conditions beyond their conscious control, compassion arises naturally. Not the condescending kind of compassion that looks down on others, but the recognition that we're all in the same boat, all doing our best to navigate existence with the tools we've been given. Here's something delightful to contemplate. Every interaction you have is like a scene in an improvisational theater. None of the actors knows exactly what's going to happen next. So, everyone is making it up as they go along, responding to whatever the other actors throw at them. Some actors are playing comedy, some are playing drama, some are playing tragedy, some are method actors who've become completely absorbed in their roles, and some are character actors who can slip in and out of different parts with ease. The beautiful thing about improved theater is that there are no mistakes, only opportunities. Whatever happens becomes part of the story. If someone drops a line, forgets their cue, or does something completely unexpected, the other actors simply incorporate it into the scene. Yes, and is the golden rule of improvisation. What if you approached your daily interactions this way? What if instead of getting upset when people don't follow your script, you simply said yes, and to whatever they bring to the scene? Your boss criticizes your work. Yes, and I can learn something from this feedback while maintaining my own sense of worth. Your partner is in a bad mood and snaps at you. Yes, and I can recognize that their mood is about them, not me, while still responding with kindness. A stranger is rude to you in traffic. Yes, and I can see that they're probably having a difficult day while not taking their behavior personally. This isn't passive acceptance of bad behavior. It's creative engagement with reality as it is rather than as you think it should be. And so we come to the heart of the matter. The ultimate irony of this whole teaching. The way to never be bothered by anyone is not to build higher walls around your ego. It's not to become tougher or more defended. It's to realize that there never was a separate you to be protected in the first place. You are not a fragment of the universe looking out at the rest of it. You are the universe looking at itself through the eyes of what you call you. The person who annoys you is also the universe expressing itself through a different pattern, a different character in the cosmic drama. When you really understand this, not just intellectually, but in your bones, in your cells, in the marrow of your being, something miraculous happens. The whole game changes. You can still play your role fully. You can still feel your feelings completely. You can still engage passionately with life, but you're no longer trapped by it. You become like an actor who knows his acting. You can cry real tears for your character's sorrows. You can feel genuine joy at your character's victories, but when the scene ends, you don't go home thinking you actually are that character. This is freedom. Not freedom from life, but freedom in life. Not the absence of experience, but the recognition that you are the space within which all experience unfolds. You are both the stage and all the players, the theater, and the entire performance. And so, my friends, here we are at the end of our little journey together. Though of course there is no real end, just as there was no real beginning. There is only this eternal moment, this endless now in which all stories arise and dissolve. You see, the teaching I've shared with you today is not really a teaching at all. It's a remembering. You already know all of this deep down in your bones. You knew it before you learned to speak, before you learned to think, before you learned to divide the world into self and other, friend and enemy, pleasant and unpleasant. You were born knowing that you are not separate from the world you perceive. A baby doesn't know where it ends and its mother begins. It doesn't know that its hand is mine and the blanket is not mine. It simply experiences the seamless flow of sensation and awareness without commentary. This is your natural state. This is what you return to when the mind becomes quiet. When the ego relaxes its grip, when you stop trying so hard to be someone and allow yourself to simply be. The way to never be bothered by anyone is to remember that everyone is you wearing a different mask. The critic is you exploring the role of the critic. The person who ignores you is you exploring the role of the one who doesn't see. The one who loves you is you exploring the role of the lover. It's all one dance, one magnificent, ever-changing, ever-flowing dance of consciousness exploring itself through countless forms, countless stories, countless apparent separate beings. And when you really see this, when you really get it, you can't help but laugh. Not with ridicule or superiority, but with pure delight at the cosmic joke of it all. You've been chasing your own tail. You've been fighting your own shadow. You've been trying to escape from yourself. But there is nowhere to go, nothing to achieve, no one to become. You are already what you seek. You are already free. You always have been. The only thing standing between you and this recognition is the belief that you are not already free. The only thing creating your suffering is the story that something is wrong, that you are separate, that others can really harm the essence of who you are. But they can't. No one can. Not because you're invulnerable, but because there's no separate you to be vulnerable in the first place. There's only this vast, aware, loving space in which all experiences arise and dissolve like waves on the ocean of being. So relax. Let it all drop for just a moment. That story you've been telling yourself about who you are and who they are, about what's wrong and what needs to be fixed, about the great divide between self and world, let it go even for an instant and see what remains. What remains is what has always been there. What will always be there. What is there right now underneath all the noise and drama and worry? Pure awareness, unconditional love, infinite peace, your true face before you were born, as the Zen masters say. And in that recognition, you find the ultimate freedom. You can be bothered and yet somehow mysteriously never be bothered at all. You can play the game of separation while knowing it's just a game. You can dance the dance of individual identity while never forgetting that there's only one dancer. And isn't that the most delightful way to live? Fully engaged yet totally free. Completely involved yet utterly peaceful. Playing all the parts with absolute sincerity while knowing that the real you is the awareness watching the play. This is the secret of never being bothered by anyone. There's no one there to be bothered and no one there to do the bothering. There's just this eternal dance of the one pretending to be the many, the universe playing hide-and-seek with itself. And you, dear friend, are both the hider and the seeker. You are both the question and the answer. You are the very mystery you've been trying to solve. Now go forth and forget everything I've told you. Don't make a philosophy out of it. Don't try to remember it or practice it or achieve it. Just live. Just dance. And when you find yourself bothered by someone again, and you will, simply smile and whisper, "Ah, there I am again playing the game of being bothered." How marvelous! And in that moment of recognition, the game becomes play once again. Suffering becomes dance and you remember who you really are beneath all the costumes and masks and roles. You are the eternal observer, the unchanging awareness, the space in which all dramas unfold. You are that which can never be bothered because you are that which watches all botheration with infinite compassion and boundless love. And that, my friends, is quite enough for one conversation.